What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Daniel Starkand, here to talk about a couple intriguing free agent names that the Dodgers have been linked to, guys that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with. I know you and I have had to kind of do a little digging on these to get into it. But Daniel, let me just start here. Do you enjoy this kind of stretch of the baseball year where it's just rumor, 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 rumor?
I think I enjoy it more when we get to the winter meetings and like there's some actual moves kind of mixed in with all the rumors. And I know there's been a few moves to this point, but we're still waiting on all the big names. And that to me is not that enjoyable. I obviously, everyone knows I cover the NBA where free agency is all in like a 2 or 3 day span. So baseball is definitely a lot different. It's hard to be patient. It's usually worth it in the end whenever that big move that the Dodgers are making gets announced, but the waiting game is not fun for me.
Yeah, it is. I think as a Dodger fan, especially, it's exhausting constantly being linked to these guys because it feels like 80% of the time is just going to end with a swift kick to the groin, and you get some up. Like I feel like I'm on pins and needles, but I'm expecting Yamamoto signs with fill in the blank of other team non-Dodgers. So we'll see how it goes. Today, two guys we want to talk about, both international players who have a bit of an unknown piece to them, but also some intrigue. We're talking about Shota Imanaga and Yariel Rodríguez. Let's start with Shota Imanaga, Japanese pitcher, 30 years old. His nickname, Daniel, according to Wikipedia, is the throwing philosopher. So we've got that going for us. I think the most interesting thing about him, Daniel, is that, excuse me, World Baseball Classic Final, Japan versus USA. It was not Yu Darvish that was selected to pitch for Japan. It was Imanaga. So as you've dug in a little bit to this guy, 30-year-old who spent the last 9 years in Japan, give me kind of level of excitement when you hear that the Dodgers are linked.
Yeah, well, kind of like you said, the Dodgers are linked to everyone at this point, and we all know they need starting pitching and a lot of it. So it's not surprising to hear them linked to two of the starting pitchers on the market. So I guess there's kind of a couple categories of what the Dodgers need. Like we know they need kind of a true ace, top of the rotation type guy. And then we know they also need kind of the back end of the rotation, mid-tier type guys who could eat innings for you and give you some, quality as well. I think both of these guys kind of are in that category. I don't look at either of these guys as like the true ace the Dodgers need. Like you said, though, this Imanaga guy, he has a ton of experience. He's 30 years old. He has a lot of accolades in the Japanese league. Like you said, he pitched in the World Baseball Classic final, so he has some big game experience here. I've seen some comparisons to Senga, who came over last year kind of at a similar age, and he had a really great year for the Mets. I think that would kind of be best case scenario for Imanaga. I don't think his stuff is nearly as good as Senga's. I guess the one good thing is he is left-handed, which we're used to seeing a Dodgers starting rotation that's full of lefties. But as things currently stand, there isn't a single lefty in the Dodgers starting rotation. We'll see if Clayton Kershaw comes back and changes that midway through the year. But this guy's a left-handed pitcher, and when you got a rotation that has Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller, Ryan Pepio, Emmett Sheehan, if they sign, a Yamamoto or someone else that's out there, that's a lot of right-handers. This guy could give you a different look from the left-hand side. He's not going to be necessarily on the high end of the free agent market. So cost-effective, I guess, although he's still, projected to get a solid deal. So I think this guy would be solid if he's the second best starting pitcher you acquire. And I think if he's the best starting pitcher you acquire, then you kind of miss the mark, in my opinion.
Yeah, most people have him tabbed as kind of a middle of the rotation guy. Like probably best case scenario is like a 2.5 type, and worst case scenario is probably like a number 4. Looking at his numbers, you mentioned it. I mean, he's not blowing people away. He just turned 30, low to mid 90s fastball. I think it touches 95, 96, but it kind of sits more in the 92, 93 range. His calling card is his changeup and his command, and primarily it's his command. He walked just 3.8% of batters he faced last year in Japan. He's had a sub-3 ERA in 6 of 8 seasons, did strike out 30% of the guys he faced. Those numbers are always the Japanese league, I think, is widely believed to be the number 2 league in the world, at worst number 3, depending on how you compare it with the KBO. But it's a level of competition that is less than Major League Baseball, but it's not nothing. So there's that. Major League Baseball trade rumors has 5 years, $85 million as the projection of a contract. Add in a posting fee on top of that. So you're talking about $17 to $20 million a year. But I think you nailed it, Daniel. If this is the second best starter that the Dodgers sign, I think I'd be fine with it. It's a guy who can step right in. He's not, somebody that you're projecting a whole lot. He's 30 years old. He's in the prime. He's remained pretty durable, pretty healthy. And so while there might be a little bit of an acclimation period, I like that he's a guy you could kind of just pencil in to the rotation and not have to worry about a whole lot with him. And so for me, if they will go out and either get somebody in the tier of Yamamoto, Corbin Burns-esque, and this guy's your number 2 acquisition, and you've got, Yamamoto as your ace, and then you've got Bobby Miller, Walker Buehler, Ryan Pepiot, and Imanaga as your sort of the 4 guys after, I feel pretty good. I think you make a great point about lefties as well. So we're in agreement there. Let's switch to Rodríguez here, 26-year-old. Very unique because in one way they're similar. They both are coming from Japan, but in other ways they're about as different as possible. Rodríguez is a 26-year-old Cuban who tried to come to Major League Baseball a year ago, and his Japanese team was basically like, hey, bud, you're still under contract. So he didn't pitch last year. He left Japan, was still under contract, did not pitch, did start 2 games for Cuba in the World Baseball Classic. That's the last time we saw him. What's interesting about Rodríguez is I can't figure out if he's a starter or a reliever. He was primarily a reliever in Japan, throws 100 miles an hour, has a nasty slider, and yet we came over to the World Baseball Classic, and he started 2 games for Cuba. MLB Trade Rumors has 4 years, $32 million. There's no posting fee involved here. He feels like one of these guys that can bounce between being your 8th inning setup man and being like your number 5, number 6 starter, which sounds like the ultimate Dodgers target, if you ask me. But give me your thoughts on Rodríguez, Daniel.
Yeah, no, you just kind of took the words right out of my mouth. This guy screams Dodger to me. Like you said, he has that versatility, which, as we've seen in this organization, they love, whether it be Kenta Maeda, Ross Stripling, the list goes on and on. They love the guys who you could stretch out as a starter, and he could be kind of your depth guy. We know there's always going to be injuries throughout the course of a season. But then when you get, towards the end of the season and the playoffs and your rotation starts to shrink to, 4 guys in the playoffs, he could then shift to a bullpen role, and his stuff has played up really well out of the bullpen where he could be successful there. So I definitely think this is a guy the Dodgers, I agree with the Dodgers' interest in them. I'm not expecting him to come in and be an ace, but kind of maybe a step below Imanaga as a starter, but still a guy who could give you innings and could be effective out of the bullpen if you need it. And I like the youth as well. Like you said, he's only 26. So you could kind of sign him to a more long-term deal with a lower AAV, let's say, and you're still going to be getting his best years from, 26 to early 30s or whatever. And it's going to be cheaper than Imanaga. So I definitely think this is a guy the Dodgers are going to be interested in if they could get him on, let's say, like a 4-year, $40 million deal or something like that, with incentives based on how much you start or relieve or whatever. I could see the Dodgers getting creative there, just to add a depth guy who you could use in whichever role you need.
Yeah. The question to me is, I think about this is, it's like, do the Dodgers have room for both of these guys? Like we all agree they need to go out and sign an ace. Neither of these guys is the ace that they need. The Dodgers have been in on Nola, and he just wasn't interested. So we know the Dodgers are big game hunting when it comes to pitching. As I look at these 2 guys, I actually think if you were to say, hey, the Dodgers are going to make 3 moves on the pitching front, these would kind of be the perfect second and third move. A guy who is a middle of the rotation starter, and then another guy who gives you rotation depth, but also kind of bolsters the back end of the bullpen. Again, Trade Rumors has him projected at about $8 million a year, which is kind of the going rate for a Joe Kelly type reliever. And so if you're getting a Joe Kelly type reliever while also getting a guy that in theory could give you 4 or 5 innings if needed, if you were in a pinch, which the Dodgers feel like they're perpetually in a pinch starting pitching wise. It feels like to me, Daniel, that there's a world where both of these guys or these types of players might be the second and third of 3 moves that the Dodgers could go out and make.
Yeah, and I definitely think when you look at the possibilities that are out there right now, like the Dodgers could potentially trade from their prospect starting pitching depth. Let's say they make a move involving Gavin Stone
Yeah.
and Michael Grove, then you could kind of bring in Rodriguez in to kind of replace their roles. So I definitely think you can never have too much starting pitching depth.
Yeah.
And I definitely, like you were saying, if this guy could be an effective reliever, that's worth $8 million, $8 million a year alone.
Yeah.
And if he gives you the ability to start as well with some upside there, I do think his stuff is probably a little better than Imanaga's, just his pure stuff. So I definitely think this is I think Rodriguez more so than Imanaga is a great fit with the Dodgers. But I'm with you. If I'm kind of under the impression they need to add 3 pitchers, not necessarily all starters. It could be a long reliever type. But if these are the second and third type guys, I think you're in great shape.
I do want to say, Daniel, you said the Dodgers need left-handed pitching. I feel like Ryan Yarbrough might take that a little bit personally. So did you want to issue an apology to Ryan Yarbrough that he wasn't brought up earlier?
If he's on the roster come spring training, I will issue my apology. We'll see. There's the 40-man roster is currently full, so they're going to have to clear some spaces at some point.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's Daniel. I'm Jeff. Again, let us know what you think below. Are these two guys the types of players you'd be interested in? Don't mishear us. The Dodgers need an ace. These would be move number 2 and move number 3 of 3. I think I'm with Daniel. I think there's 3 moves they need to make on the pitching side. I think they need 2 starters for sure. And then the third one, if you could get a high-end reliever or kind of a swingman type, which it sounds like Rodriguez could potentially be both of those things in one. I think that's the perfect move. So let us know what you think below. As always, you can check us out on DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958 on social media. And if you're a podcast person, Apple, Spotify, Google, find the DodgerHeads podcast. Give us a subscribe, a rating, and a review. We would greatly appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. As always, go Dodgers.